Hello, welcome, welcome. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Dawn Smith, and I am Director of Publishing at Brave Writer. And I know that you are showing up here today. So many of you signed up so early for this webinar, so it is actually a very hot topic. I know you're here because you have concerns about AI and what it means for your children and this very, very, very quick pace that we are going on this journey with AI and all the technological advancements that we are seeing. I wanted to start with a quote, and I'm going to say this quote to you. And then what I would love to do, I'm not going to tell you who said it or when it is from, the time period yet. But I would really like to, after I read it, for you to let me know what time you think, like what year it was first written. So here's the quote. One thing seems clear. If all students are helped into the full utilization of their intellectual powers, we will have a better chance of surviving as a democracy in an age of enormous technological and societal complexity. In an age of enormous technological and societal complexity. So give me some years. When do you think that was written? Industrial Revolution time, 1900, 1899, Industrial Revolution, 1980s. Nice, nice. 2000s. Yeah. So just by the chat, I'm seeing that there seem to be these other markers in time where a quote like this would resonate. This was actually written by Jerome Bruner, who was an educational researcher in 1960. When I first read it, I felt really reassured, like, oh, there are these other moments in which technological advancements have created a lot of uncertainty. Woo, like kind of this relief. But then I thought, not so fast. Like, hold on a second. This moment that we are in with AI, it feels different in so many ways. So, whereas many technologies over time, I kind of feel like they've had a slow burn. Like it took a really long time to string the power lines out to the remote farms and villages. I mean, people could literally see them putting in power lines and watch the lines be connected. It took a really long time for a phone to be in every home. So there was this easing into change that was the norm and has been the norm for a long time. And now I feel like we're moving in this very move fast and break things moment. It can be both very exciting and completely unsettling all at the same time. But what I do know and what I feel really deeply about is that the move fast and break things mentality can't be extended to our children. So we're in this moment of figuring out, where do our kids fall into this mix? I mean, we may personally as adults have varying understandings of AI. Some people on this call may work in AI, and others may not have anything to do with it and may have never really interacted with it. So whether you're super excited about the possibility of injecting nanobots to assist your thinking, which some people say is coming as early as 2030, or you feel like that is a lot of hype and that the bubble is going to burst and it's not going to turn out to be all the things that we thought it might be, this moment feels really precarious because as we are navigating this as adults, we are also looking at our children and trying to figure out how to help them navigate tech that we don't fully understand ourselves in a lot of ways. So we are living in this fast and furious moment right alongside them. And the future is literally more uncertain than ever. I know even many adults are dealing with the uncertainty around their own work and how these types of advancements are going to impact how they work. So trying to prepare our kids for a future 5, 10, 15 years down the road. I have 19 and 22-year-old launching out into the world. So trying to figure out even what that is going to look like is nearly impossible. When my kids were young, I was told if they're not coding, then the future is going to pass them by. And now, coders are still very needed and necessary, but we're seeing a big shift in that area with AI. And it just doesn't feel like there's any one skill in terms of like a technological skill that is going to guarantee a future. So, what we need to do is start looking kind of outside that. And there aren't really many areas like this where we have learning right alongside of our kids in a quickly developing technological world. So when we are teaching our kids skills, we usually have more experience with it and then move forward. So learning how to be safe near water, learning how to navigate a parking lot, learning how to drive. These skills are things where we have incremental steps and we've gone through them ourselves. And we have readiness markers. We're basing this on developmental readiness. So we're not just going to, like, our kid turned 16, we're going to hand over the cars, no driver's training, no driver's ed, just here you go, here's the car keys, you're 16 now, off you go. No, we don't do that. So we need to maybe start looking at technology and some of these advancements through that lens of what are incremental steps that children need to go through developmentally in order to have access and to utilize some of these tools that are now becoming available to us. So as we face the changes that the technology brings, we can rely on some foundational skills to serve our children, no matter what the tech developments are and how it changes our work or our home life. There are foundational skills that I'm going to share with you tonight that are uniquely human capacities that can never be automated. And we can certainly help our kids develop those and become AI proof. And I will also share what I mean by AI proof. So today I'm going to walk you through a lens by which you could view AI. We're going to talk about what I mean by AI proof. I'm going to break down what I call a triple threat in learning. And in that process, I'm going to share with you how Brave Writer pedagogy and the products and tools that we have to help you develop those skills in your children and also develop them personally. We know a lot of parents who benefit from walking their kids through our products and going through the journey that is, a whole lifestyle shift in Brave Writer to help them to find their voice and to be not only writers, but communicators and whole persons. Would absolutely love to hear how you are already using AI. Tell me, what kinds of AI you're using, programs you're using, how you might be using it. Somebody said, yes, they're already using it. So somebody said pretty lost with AI and all its applications, not using it at all. Use chat to inspire homeschool curriculum planning. Use it to read my MRI scans and x-rays. Some people said they aren't. Siri and Alexa. Yeah, I think. Okay, that's interesting. Claude and ChatGPT. Troubleshooting appliance repairs. Nice. I've never knowingly used it. That's a really great observation. We're going to get into that. ChatGPT to get the ball rolling on unit studies, planning. Use AI to make sense. That it's voice to dictation, help my dyslexic kiddo. Right, there's a lot of accommodations for quick edits when I write a Google review. Some people are saying they generally avoid it whenever possible. ChatGPT and Claude. I'm just scrolling right down. Some people are saying they use it a lot for work. Notebook LM, compare products to buy. So let's see, so price comparison, itinerary, travel itinerary. Okay, so we have a really interesting balance here. We have some people who avoid it, at least knowingly, don't think that they use it. And then others who are definitely using it in integrated ways into work or home and lifestyle things. So it's really interesting to see the whole schema of where it's being used. I don't want to get too deep into the AI weeds of what it is. But I personally like to see it and view it as an ecosystem, a diverse ecosystem of tools that kind of can be better viewed in my mind under the term automation. So if we think of the things in our lives that have become automated, some of those things, like automated text generation, we can think of other ways that we see it kind of appear. And things like ChatGPT are basically pattern recognition text generators. But there are other ways that it's kind of become so ubiquitous that we don't really think about it as being AI. So, like the shopping suggestions that we see on sites like Amazon or other places, sorting photos on our phones, like when our phones automatically sort photos for us, that's an AI process. Sorting mail in our inboxes, like how does Google, Gmail know that that's spam, or how does it know to go in the forums or this folder or that folder? That's AI related. When we have Google Maps or GPS and it diverts us away from traffic jams, that's AI. We also have translation texts where we can put from one language to another, speech to text or image recognition. We have image alteration. So if you or your kids have ever taken a picture and put it in and then made it into a cartoon. There are also smart appliances. I know my appliances are really dumb, but I've seen on TV that you can have a refrigerator that tells you what's in your fridge and what you need to do a certain recipe. I also found out there are AI smart thermometers, thermostats that can indicate like when you're home and when you're going to get home, and it will turn the heat on for you, a little bit before you get home or when you're gone. These are like wildly Jetson types of things that kind of blow my mind a little bit. But I think what's fascinating to me about it as I was doing more research is that a lot of these smart things that we have in our homes, people don't typically see them as AI necessarily. I think when you hear about AI, a lot of people are thinking like ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude, Notebook LM, the kinds of things that are being used for text generation, which are basically like text predictors. So if you say cat in the, 90% of the time it's going to say hat because that is what it's been trained on. And so it's using predictive text to do that. So we've already established now that, it's involved in many, many aspects of our lives, but we still have a say about how we interact with it and the role it's going to play in the lives of our children. So this is feels like a very pivotal moment. And as I'm sure many people on this call are homeschoolers, or you're concerned parents who are directly related to what's going on in your child's school. And this is a really good time for us to learn as much as possible so that we can kind of start to guide and look at how our children are going to interact with this technology. So if you have really young kids, you're going to probably take a different approach than if you have older kids. So as we go through some of these items that I'm going to talk about, we can really think about it in, there's some teasing out and some separating of like if you have, early elementary kids as opposed to if you have teens. So I'm going to try to tease a little bit of that out, and I'll share a little bit more at the end to differentiate some approaches that you could take with those. But let's start with what I mean about raising AI-proof kids. So what does it mean to be AI-proof? There are two views and two lenses we can kind of set up here. One of them is that your own uniquely human qualities and voice are developed and curated to the point that you can properly use AI as a tool and not allow it to do your thinking for you. So what we're looking at cultivating in our kids is their unique voice and thoughts and understanding of the world are so embedded in who they are, and they have been so validated that they don't want to use AI to do their thinking for them. And if we can approach AI with that mindset, then it is more likely to be used as a tool instead of something that offloads thinking and makes it so that you are simply letting something else think for you. The second view is that you develop skills that can never be automated. Therefore, you make yourself a valuable member of your family, your community, your society, and that includes your workplace. So jobs are shifting, and we need to prepare our kids to be nimble and flexible as possible. So they're not just going to, trudge through to face the challenges of the future, but they're going to thrive in the future because they do have their voice intact and they're flexible and adaptable and autodidactic and constantly ready to change and evolve with whatever the future brings. The next step is, how do we do it? This is the big how-to. So in entertainment, we have a concept of an entertainer being a triple threat. What are the three areas an entertainer needs to master to be a triple threat? Does anybody know? You don't have to be a theater major. I'm sure that we have heard this before. A triple threat entertainer. What are the three things that they do? They dance, they sing, they act, right? So if an entertainer can dance and sing and act, then they have the ultimate versatility. If somebody approaches them and they want them to be in a musical, they've got it. They've got all the pieces of the puzzle there to be able to do that. And if someone is just an actor, but they can't really sing, or they can sing and they can dance, but then they're not all that good at acting, then it limits their possibilities of what they have available to them. When we're looking at the triple threat in learning, the three skills that I would like to see us develop are in communication, thinking, and adaptability. Let's take a look at each one and I will break them down. So under communication, we have oral, written, and interpersonal. This is the idea that the ability to express ideas clearly in your unique voice and connect meaningfully with others is at the heart of what it means to be human. And it is at the heart of human collaboration, working with other humans. AI can generate words, but only humans can connect with other humans on a relational level, in a truly genuine way. Strong communicators can persuade and teach and negotiate and lead no matter what the field is. So once they have that skill in place, they can plug into all kinds of different fields and establish themselves there in relationship with other people. We want our kids to learn to develop and lean into their individual voice. A robust voice, like I said, it will make them less likely to offload their thinking to machines because they have a solid idea about what they want to convey and have an understanding of what makes them a unique individual. So we want them to develop oral language skills that allow them not only to express themselves, but also learn to read and understand human communication in order to enter into meaningful relationships. And that includes tolerating the friction that sometimes comes with being a human living with other humans. We know that relationships are both joyful and sometimes painful. And we need to persist in this idea of overcoming the friction that is living with other humans, because chatbots can't replace that. That is a human to human interaction. And knowing that friction exists and we grow and we learn and we develop from it is really important for us to impart in our kids. So on the AI front, the ability to communicate both orally and written instructions will only serve to create better output in the models. So like any tool, AI systems really perform best when they're in the hands of somebody who can know how to communicate with them. So the best prompting creates the best output. For those of you not as familiar with AI, with especially something like ChatGPT or Claude or Gemini, you type a prompt in or you speak a prompt and then it gives you an output. But you have to prompt it well to get a good output. And a user that is an expert in their field and has a lot of background in their field, not only do they have the linguistic facility to be able to put a good prompt in that is going to get a good response, but they also know when AI is not giving good output. And the user needs to know enough about that field of study or that area to make sure that AI is not making things up or hallucinating. So when I look at the people who are utilizing AI really well, they're usually people who are experts in their field. And that's why we're seeing in certain medical areas, there's breakthroughs in people who are greatly specializing. So we have to keep that in mind as we think about giving these tools to kids who are definitely not specialists in their field. And it's really important. So Brave Writer has, throughout its pedagogy, obviously writing is really important. And we have oral language development and interpersonal communication and questions and response all woven in. So in Growing Brave Writers, which is our spine, we start off with communication game. It is one of the first activities, and it is a playful way to help kids express ideas clearly and respond to others' perspectives. It's a very give and take, and it always catches people off guard a little bit because it doesn't seem like a traditional writing activity, but it is integral to this idea of written communication and how it functions, and gives families and children a chance to experience that, and also includes an oral component piece. We also have free writing as a major component of our program, and that is in Growing Brave Writers. There's a whole process, and then it is integrated into how we function and how the writing process unfolds in our other products. We have what we call composition format products, and those include not only projects for your kids to do to learn writing formats, but also oral language piece and wordplay are all integrated into those products. And then, of course, our literature guides are really discussion based. So along with using lots of writing activities to learn grammar, punctuation, spelling, and literary devices and literary analysis, we have a huge language piece that includes conversations. So there are big, juicy questions that are open-ended questions that allow for family discussions around books and movies and life topics. So we have, in our younger years, there are big, juicy questions. And in the older years, in the high school guides, they are think piece questions. And they definitely lead to what we call big, juicy conversations. And that is something that you could actually integrate right now after you get off this webinar. Just simply go and have a conversation with your kids. We talk about Brave Writer being the fourth R, which is relationship. And that idea that you are developing a relationship with your kids through communication and through interactions, and developing the relationship that your child has towards learning and toward developing their own voice is really important. So next time your child comes up to you and they're telling you about something, you can stop, you can, there's my phone, put down your phone, look them in the face, and really absorb what they are telling you. And then if they're really young, you could even say, hold on a second, and you can grab something and write down word for word what they are saying, so that you can validate to them that they have something worthwhile to listen to and for you to record on paper. And then you can even read it back to them, being completely astonished that they are already becoming writers and good communicators. So that's something you could walk away with. That is a practice that we call Jot It Down. And it is a really important part of our pedagogy. And you could do it right when you leave this webinar. That is communication. Let's move on to thinking. Thinking in this context includes critical and creative thinking. So the idea here is to develop the capacity to analyze, imagine, question, problem solve. These are skills that really fuel innovation and independent thought. AI can process data, but it can't really think outside the box. It is very much in its parameters. And it can't make connections that your kids come to when they really grapple with ideas in their own personal context. So we each come to life with very unique experiences. It's a compilation of books that we've read, plays that we've seen, countries we visited, daily life that we interact with, our dogs, our cats, our environment all around us make up this whole unique knowledge base that is 100% uniquely our own. And so it allows us to make connections that might not even be self-evident to other people because we have our totally unique lived experience. And the lens by which we view the world allows us to think differently about the things that we interact with and how we understand them. So kids who are validated and they are inspired to ask questions and to push back, kids who can learn to ask better questions, they're always going to stay ahead of something, a machine that can just regurgitate answers. So kids who have their thinking validated and nurtured from very early on, they learn to kind of push back on the norms. And that's a really hard thing to parent. I will just admit it up front that raising a kid who is encouraged to push back and encouraged to question can be difficult. And I remember over the years needing to say, this will be a good adult quality. This will be a really good adult quality and guide them in their thinking and why are they pushing back and digging deeper. It takes a lot of intentionality as a parent to nurture that kind of attitude toward life and to express to our kids that we understand and that we validate their unique being and how that is going to push them to think outside the box and to not just go along and accept what they are expected to do. Because I was just listening actually to somebody today talking about how even the junior level jobs that are being curated now, they're fewer and fewer, but what they're really looking for are people who are willing to push outside the box and not just go along with the norm. Because what's happening is AI is norming a lot of things because it's trained on the mean, it's trained on the norm, and they're looking for people who can push outside those norms. But we have to train that and push our kids in that direction, and it can become difficult. And I definitely commiserate. But we do have practices in Growing Brave Writers and in our other products that can help you with that. Starting to teach them to look critically and think critically is really important. And it leads to creativity outside the box thinking. In Growing Brave Writers, we have a really neat activity called Keen Observation. And it is all about noticing the details in an object or even an idea. And it really is this foundation for analytical and critical thinking, looking closely at things and being able to make distinctions and to really analyze nuance. So that is one thing that we do. We also really look at thinking as a process, and the whole writing process is part of that. So we're collecting ideas, we're playing with structure, we're moving things around, we're making new meanings. All of that is part of the way that we teach writing. So that is all of those practices are in Growing Brave Writers. And then our lit guides, our literature singles, our year-long literature programs, they cover a lot of thinking in terms of discussion and looking at and analyzing characters and motives and themes. And we really encourage that kind of analysis. Even for younger kids, we have something called the DART, and it has some writer's craft and literary devices that allow even your youngest kids to kind of be in on it and to start to really tap into what their unique thoughts are and their ideas about what you're reading and what you're learning. There are also big, juicy questions, like I mentioned, and think piece questions that are very open ended. So they are not necessarily just comprehension questions as much as they are conversation openers or conversation starters. So, your tip that goes along with thinking here tonight that you could use as a takeaway is that you can ask questions that do not have one right answer. So, encourage imagination, a what if scenario, or like what if thinking. Really get curious about what and how your child thinks so that they're not just regurgitating for the right answer, but they're pulling in their unique self and their unique way to view the world so that they can express to you, and then you validate to them and start to cultivate that idea that not everything has one right answer, and they have a unique way to view the world, and it's worth exploring and expressing. The third of our triple threat in learning area here is adaptability. This includes flexible thinking and lifelong learning. So the ability to pivot and persist and learn new things, these are really going to be key traits for the future. And especially when we're looking at careers and the way technology is going to continually change and evolve work life and even home life, really. So we want our kids to know that even though there may be some uncertainty about what the future holds, they are adaptable and they can adjust to change and they can see opportunities when there's disruption and things are not necessarily linear and all mapped out for them in a roadmap that looks easy to follow. So they can really be confident enough with all of their skill development to reinvent themselves as they grow and change and the world changes around them. We really want to raise autodidacts. So people who just are continually learning and ready for anything. And I think one of the ways that we as parents can start to use this with our kids is look at the ways that we learn. So when we want to learn something new, we have all kinds of things at our disposal to learn that. And some of you even said you used AI to troubleshoot in appliance repairs and things like that. So we can look at our own resources and how we learn, and when we come up against friction, what we do to solve that, and start to give our kids a real opportunity to look at their own learning, the ways that they like to learn best, so that they start to come to an understanding that they have nuanced ways of viewing the world, and how they learn is how they should lean into the process of learning, just like we do as adults. And then they can start to learn to play in nuance and to develop the skills necessary to really grow and learn. And when there is friction, when the learning gets hard, they can start to lean into that and know that that's just part of the process and not shy away from that. And that helps to develop their flexibility as thinkers, and that they know that learning is not just something that happens because you've got this, one book, you're going to read this book, you're going to tell me what was in the book, and then we're moving on to the next thing. That's not how we learn as adults. So we want to really carry over some of those things to kids. So in Brave Writer, we have a philosophy: go slow to go fast. And it really is something that encourages this idea of pacing and meeting your child where they are, and then going forward, teaching with flexibility and self-awareness, as opposed to just timelines that you need to check off in boxes. We also have a practice where we enter into kind of low stakes and high stakes writing, and and even in our revision practices, where you're playing with writing and you're looking at the different types of writing, informal and formal writing, and the way kids can play with it to adapt for tone or voice, and editing for different purposes. So we have a lot of tools available where you can teach kids how to play with language and not be as didactic about it. There's also composition formats in our project products that are really, really adaptable and change with your child's interest so that you can give them control over some of their learning processes and some of the writing processes and really adjust to their interests. So if your child is engaged in an assignment that they don't really like or they don't really want to do, it might be something that you assign to them, or even if they're in school, something that is assigned to them. And they're not interested in it. One of the ways to promote this idea is that you could ask them if they could change it to make it more interesting, then what would they do? How might they change it? Meeting them where they are is not cheating. And changing the assignment is not totally removing friction, but what it's doing is it's saying, okay, you're still going to do this assignment, but what are some ways that you would like to go about it? What are some processes that you would like to do, or how would you like to change it? And what that's doing is it's instilling in them this idea that learning is not always the way it was always done, is the way it has to be done. And that really promotes this idea of flexibility in their thinking and how they can start to mold the world around them based on what they see, how they view it, and what they want to do. And instill in them that sometimes things have to get done, but maybe the way they're always done isn't the only way to get it done. And that's definitely going to help them in the future. So, like I said, it takes a concerted effort for us as parents, or if there's any teachers on the call, to help kids to develop these skills. And it's just like playing catch in the backyard. You know, you've got your glove, your kid's throwing a ball at you. If you're looking at your phone or you're distracted doing something else, you're going to get hit in the face with the ball. So one of the things that we have to do is really work on ourselves to be really present with our kids, to help to guide them through these processes and developing these skills and these understandings. And one of the first steps that we can do is model ourselves. Like I said, we are lifelong learners. We are always using different tactics and different methods to learn new things, whether it's baking sourdough or knitting or learning to use AI. There are all kinds of processes that we do in order to learn and grow, and we need to let our kids see us doing those things. Reading about new technologies or new things that are new to us, taking on new projects, and making mistakes in front of them, and not, completely losing it and quitting, but learning and moving forward and trying again. So we are learning alongside our kids. We are a few steps ahead of them for the most part, even with some of these newer things. So if you have younger kids, their developmental skills coming along is a really great opportunity to figure out where you want to be on this journey with them and when you want to ease them into tech. Tech will always be changing. So the tech of the moment for your 10-year-old is probably not going to be the tech that 10-year-old is going to be using in their adult work life later on. So having the skills that you really want them to develop in place as you think about how to introduce some of this stuff to your kids is a really good idea. If you have teens and you're pretty sure they're already involved in using AI, it's open the communications. I mean, the communication of, have you used AI? Do you have friends that are using it? What are they using it for? Obviously, not in a quiz type manner. This would be an ideal conversation for like in the car when you're both sitting next to each other. So it's not a face-to-face confrontational feeling, but get really curious about what's happening and how they might be using it, and figure out if your teen is using AI to just get through and get it done, then what is it about what they're engaged in that is not engaging them? How can you find a better way to get them invested, to get them interested in whatever it is they are learning? Because when kids are interested and when they are excited about a topic, or at least at the very least, know that parents are on board with helping them find a way to make it more interesting, even if it's something that they're not passionate about, then they're more likely to engage in the thinking that we talked about earlier and that idea that I have a voice, I have a say in this. So I want to use that and I don't just want to offload that thinking to AI. So that's a really great place to start with your teens and figuring out some of that nuance. And that, of course, pertains to when you are dealing with academic subjects. The social piece I mentioned before about chatbots and things like that, that is another area of really important conversation. And this idea of entering into human relationships and being okay with friction. This is something that I've been hearing a lot of. You know, I have a 19-year-old and is in university and dealing a lot with this idea of friction and people wanting kind of a low friction world and creating a low friction world. And that's a lot of technology has created a low friction world for us. So when we come up against friction, sometimes the inclination is to pull back. When it comes to interpersonal relationships, that friction is what helps us grow as individuals and helps us to learn to be with other people. So the idea that some of our teens and even some adults are going to chatbots, which are frictionless types of interactions, is something really important to examine and to make sure that we keep those lines of communications open, especially with our teens. We do have 15 minutes if we want to have some Q&A. Before that, I wanted to share with you, I have a slide with a recap of what I shared so that you can just take a quick screenshot if you want to. So the triple thread in learning, to recap, is communication, oral, written, and interpersonal, thinking, critical and creative, and adaptability, flexible thinking, and lifelong learning. So if you want to take a screenshot of that, you can, if you haven't taken notes and you just want to have that to review. I saw some questions come up in the Q&A folder. Is it okay to let your kids see you using AI, for example, meal planning, grocery shopping, homeschool planning, or should we stop and use our brains again? Saves a lot of time for busy mom. That's a great question. That is a really great question. I think it really depends on your kids and what your situation is. There's no one right answer about whether or not your kids should see you using AI. I think there's a lot of talking through and oral development in terms of tell your kids what you're doing. I'm using AI to meal plan because it makes it easier. I know I could do it on paper and I did it on paper for years, but this is a really easy way for me to just quickly do this so that, I mean, you could even connect the dots. I'm going to use this so that it takes me less time. And that way I can spend more time doing XYZ over here. Like I'm learning about knitting, you know, I'm learning lace and I really want to focus on that and I want to spend my energy there. So I'm using this time-saving tool so that I can do this other thing. I mean, that kind of thought process, just not that I'm just using it because it's there, but I'm using it for a purpose. What time do we run online courses? Yeah, we do have, I didn't talk about the online courses so much tonight, but we do have online classes and they are asynchronous. So once you sign up, you have a set period of time. The course does run along like a 4 to 6 week track, but you can sign in. Like if you're in Australia, you can sign in anytime to do the coursework during that week. Are these classes live based on USA timing? When we do webinars, they are based on, usually we put it out Eastern time. But our courses are asynchronous, so you can come in at any time. This was really helpful. Great. Good. Okay. Well, everyone, we will put this replay out, but not until later in the week. But we will put this out on our YouTube channel. So if you feel like you have a friend or somebody that you know who would benefit from seeing this and learning more, then you can certainly, we'll send it out and get it out there so that you can share it. Okay. Thanks, everyone. Bye.